This isn't the Dragon Age I know. It's so much more. At its highest settings, Dragon Age Inquisition is scarily good looking. The world expands, surpasses the scope of what we saw in Origins and 2. Thedas feels alive. While its many regions are self-contained, Bioware delivers on the exploration they promised. The infamous one cave map is a fleeting memory, replaced by the expanded caves of Elven, Dwarven, and even Tevinter influence. Maps are garnished with soft details like cheese wheels, and those awful beers that forcibly ping your radar. And spiders. Damned spiders. Some players may skip out on the codex entries, but if paying attention, at the very least, to the letters and notes, the world unfolds as this organic atmosphere. These small additive details, coupled with the massive and engaging lands, collectively build and flavor the world. The companions, advisors, and even agents of the Inquisition deliver. The voice actors are well picked. For the life of me, I cannot even think of a single one that underperformed, which I imagine is in good thanks to the writers and voice director Caroline Livingstone. Maker forbid Freddie Prinze Jr. ever watches this review, but his take on the Iron Bull, especially in light of his romance, is one of the most entertaining and comforting performances I've seen out of a Bioware game. Let's not forget Jennifer Hale's voiceover of Krem, Cremisius Aclassi, the third transgender character in all of Dragon Age's narrative. Krem stands strong as a character, as he is not used as a clown to be mocked or some beacon of hope to be placed on a pedestal. He simply just is. And for a transgender person out of Tevinter, a nation that prioritizes perfection in breeding, as important as breathing, Krem's story covers well the simplicity and absurdity of the situation that people experience in today's society, without making the character simply a tool for exerting a purpose or stance. The Bulls Chargers took lead as the company you want to keep, showcasing an unprecedented mix of compassion, humor, and ferocity in a video game.
Thing looks heavy. Don't want to move or break it. Oh, it's sturdy.
The Inquisitor voices definitely take on their own reflections and positively add to the experience. There are some awkward inflections existing in certain lines, "What's going on here?" being the most poignant in my memory. But other than that, Alex Wilden Regan delivers exceptionally with the female Inquisitor on the sarcastic side. Similarly, Montana's voice has a resounding boom when dealing with direct, aggressive choices. Admittedly, I only have experience with the British voice for the male Inquisitor, but Harry Hatton Payton's take, I think, excels in so many different ways.
Don't be silly. I'm not that scary.
As far as the Inquisitor's race and background taking a stronger role in dealing with the Dojans, I greatly enjoyed its consistency throughout the tale. Showing up to the Winter Palace as a Dalish mage and being immediately strike 20 points was hilariously challenging, but appropriate. Opposed to the hero Ferelden being merely accepted because they were a Grey Warden, as the Inquisitor, building up from such humble beginnings had enlightening perspectives in both racism and religious ideologies. I think this is where the game truly shines, the availability of shaping the Inquisitor as your own in race, conversational tonalities, and character creation. Well, minus the hair. Wish there was more of that. Moving on, let's chat briefly about the bugs. The most I had were crashing problems, which resolved themselves within a few days post-release. On PC, I never had the painstaking issues that other fans reported, lack of banter firings, audible pops, and so on. For PS4, my only difficulties were controls not working and specific dialogues. As I speak, Bioware is working tirelessly on pushing new patches, specifically 2 hotfixes, in order to counter the bugs. I suppose my experience felt privileged as I did not experience the bugs reported, and thoroughly enjoyed my whole playthrough from beginning to end with little difficulty. In regards to PC controls, as a formerly avid MMO player, I am used to the way the controls felt, and after realizing the F key and spacebar could be used to interact with the world quickly, of course I didn't realize these options were available until 50 hours in, stupid me. But anyway, the game was easy to traverse. Some gripes with the tactical camera lie in its positional resetting upon switching characters, but that specific issue was identified as a bug and is to be fixed in an upcoming patch. I do miss the tactics of Origins, however, allowing visible control over the companion's actions. I hesitated at the beginning, not being able to dictate certain commands to apply in specific situations, but really the only difficulty I find actually disconcerting lies in the AI, and companions standing in hazards like fire while fighting in huge engagements. Dragon fights in particular. While I know there is an absurd amount of difficulties in coding AI, and completely sympathize with any developer, not just Bioware, for the bulk of necessary resource allocation, I found solace standing in fire, basic attacking with full mana one too many times. For the sake of time, let's speedrun through some problems I have with Inquisition. Number 1, no inventory chest. Even after bumping up my inventory twice to 90, I felt that for so much customization pushed in this game, it was greatly restricted by the space limitations. Would have been great to have one in the bedroom, to give it more significance rather than merely romance scenes. Number 2, no respecting of Inquisition perks is painful, as some perks, like Deft Hand, Deft Tools to be specific, lock you out of quests and areas. For example, Blackwell's fetch quest and the maps that you need to gather are behind a door in the Foul Mire, and it's locked. Would have enjoyed the option to, say, gain Inquisition perks in lieu of improving advisor operation time, as far as recruiting new agents, but that's just my idea. Number 3, hair. The selection of hair choices for both males and females, since they were interchangeable, felt restricted. I don't expect long, flowing locks, as clipping would make that surely a natural, but in the future, I honestly hope there are more braids. Number 4, while it's been said to possibly change post-release, a face code would have saved much anxiety over creating new Inquisitors and sharing old ones. And number 5, the Inquisitor can't interact with the love interest post-ending. This is like totally a travesty. Like, oh my god, Bioware, please. Those are the scramblings of my thoughts, but now to dive deeper into the game. Heavy story spoilers ahead. Press the button on the bottom right to skip straight to my final thoughts. Otherwise, let's dive deeper into Dragon Age Inquisition.
We need everyone back to the Chantry. It's the only building that might hold against that beast. At this point, just make them work for it.
The Inquisitor's path is tightly structured and avoids heavy confusion. I've heard others believe the main questline is too short, but adding in the amount of time for companion missions and conversations, like Samson's side quests and talking to Hawk or the available Warden, I felt the length was appropriate. Even in one of my cheating playthroughs, in other words, unlimited gold and crafting materials, the main plot itself still took 35 hours. For each mission, I did not feel strung along to complete an arbitrary list of requisites. Each mission had an honest flow that made the story continuously engaging. And after a time, I realized power allocation was simple and even half-assed in some ways. Capture some camps. There's some power. Go about your way. The pacing environments felt natural, where in Dragon Age 2, Hawk was simply reacting to the conflicts and complications of Kirkwall. The Inquisitor is hands-on all the way. My personal favorite is Here Lies the Abyss, the Grey Warden quest where you interacted with Hawk. The decision at the end really compounded my choices made from Origins and 2. It felt like a huge personal investment must be sacrificed, but the ramifications of that decision from the Wardens and my former companions really made me panic. How far does this death affect me? My Inquisitor? Can I be selfish and keep Hawk, letting the cycle continue and allowing her love interest in Varric another day? Or be the responsible type and allow the Wardens to proceed? Or will whoever I leave actually be dead, as it is only likely that my choice will die, and perhaps dying in the Fade physically means something completely different than dying while dreaming? At its surface, the choice between Hawk and a Warden felt like a jab at the player's feelings, but the consequences and choice are so stretched in permutations that it leaves me bewildered. That left me loving the quest so much more. As far as the Inquisition as a whole is concerned, there is a lot of pressure on the player to engage in side quests. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and in their own satisfying ways. The Inner Circle quests actually trump the main quest. With Collins, the player researches an alternative way to fight Samson with the help of Artificer Dagna. If you don't do this quest, then his boss fight is particularly difficult. However, if you choose to do the long string of quests involved with Colin, you actually get a rune to later rip through Samson's armor, which by the way feels extremely rewarding upon completion. A lot of side quests really shine in their own way, helping you gain power as the Inquisitor and, in some cases, making you feel like you are truly this big part of shaping the new world, little piece by little piece, just like what the hero Ferelden did with helping Dagna, or Hawk telling Sebastian off at the end, leaving Blondie's mess. And as the Inquisitor, there's a whole lot of mess to clean up. But I think one quest I felt so weird about lies in what Pride had wrought. which revealed the existence of actual elves from ancient times in, technically, today's world. It's an amazing quest and a huge yes for anyone who's played the previous games. Time magic already felt a bit far-fetched in the mage quest, but finding out a previously dead people are alive, and learning that years of Dalish lore have been blurred and mired across the ages to a different truth, is a huge realization for the informed. It's mind-boggling and exciting for the informed Dragon Age fan, but it loses its impact on players who are only learning right then and there, oh, by the way, there's an elven pantheon. Beyond the Codex, little has been divulged on the elven gods in a digestible way. Is the goal to push players to extend their reach to find out what's going on? Or has Bioware thrown the player into the water, hoping they don't drown? Maybe a bit of both.
The big demon Eramond was trying to bring through.
Yes.
It's nearby.
Yes.
Well, shit.
I think Bioware's challenge as the series goes on from the third installment is keeping all players up to date. The game is extremely lore intensive, even suffocating at times. And for those who have been following for quite some time, there are inflections upon the lore everywhere. Most of what is described in the main story that is integral to the narrative derived from the history of Tevinter, the Elven Pantheon, and Elvenon. Those who have not been following close enough cannot comprehend, perhaps even fathom, the context of what organizations and risks are posed, such as keeping the Chantry or its circles stabilized. The problem lies in if there's enough lore and context explained within the confines of the main story, and if newer players can at least grasp the context of their actions. It's a healthy problem to have, as nothing's wrong with having an engaging narrative, but while some of it is explained in the Codex and the investigate conversation trees, it seems the player is too forced to branch out of the main quest to become aware. If I were to claim my biggest disappointment for Inquisition, it would be summarized with one name: Corypheus. A character that players have seen before in Dragon Age II Legacy, where Hawk and company could truly feel the terror of letting this ancient magister go. Matter of fact, Corypheus' fight in Legacy was one of the most fulfilling fights out of all Dragon Age II, DLC and all, rivaling Knight Commander Meredith's multi-phase end battle. Yet, Corypheus' final fight was composed of catch me if you can, with the player haggardly running point to point, enduring his idle threats and vent slurs. Even the dragon fight felt mediocre. A red lyrium dragon reduced to a tank and spank engagement, opposed to the engaging environments we've fought dragons in within the open world. It's not just about the final fight that disappoints, but the progression of Corypheus as an enemy. Everyone dehumanized him into this power-grabbing darkspawn where, in Legacy, we saw the sliver of humanity that existed in him. While the Darkspawn taint flowed through his veins, he was betrayed by Dumont. He was made Darkspawn. His interest felt so singular that every aspect of Corypheus within the main plot, including his appearances and dialogue, poised him as this one-dimensional character. Too far apart are examples of his humanity: cold scattered thoughts, words from Corypheus' apprentice hidden away in the Fade, his thoughts at the Shrine of Dumont, which are gated to Inquisitors who sided with the Templars, and even his true name. All of these are so removed. I feel Corypheus' effectiveness as an enemy is lost because he is reduced to being treated as, in Liliana's words, an ultimate evil, a darkspawn and an ancient magister. But that's the problem. He's not inherently evil. He's human. We've seen it in the past, and there are hints in Inquisition, but none of them are capitalized on in the main plot. We don't understand Corypheus. We don't understand ancient Tevinter. He's told us, but has he really shown us? Hell, 3 games in and we were just barely learning more about modern Tevinter. Other than the superficial desire for the power of a god, we see little motivation or goal beyond that. He wants to reinstitute ancient Tevinter? What was it in the first place? We don't know. We never truly knew. Corypheus' motivation and the Imperium that he left ages behind is lost to us. My only grievance beyond Corypheus lies in the incomplete feeling of having only 3 of your companions with you at the end, opposed to engaging all companions in a final fight a la Origins 2, Mass Effect 2, or Mass Effect 3 Citadel. While it's a heartwarming scene, having all the companions while back with the Inquisitor, it left me in an awkward state. While they were all integral to the success of the Inquisition, not all were present for the final showdown that they collectively worked and prepared themselves for. Together. It reduced Corypheus' meaning and the gravity of another rip in the sky. At the end of all things, we saw Corypheus call out to Dumont and the old gods to aid him. But his desperation means little to new players. His removal from the physical world means little. Corypheus' role was merely a placeholder in the grand scheme. But as his role was so integral to framing the main plot, it felt like a loss.
Accompanying the Inquisitor, Seeker, Cassandra, Allegra, Portia, Calogera, Philomena,
Get on with it.
Pantagast.
While Corypheus felt like a pawn in the grand scheme, the true heroes of the Inquisition drove the story to a satisfying end. Many fans joke about the Filza, but the stories of the Inquisition's companions and advisors are some of the most diverse and enchanting storylines in Dragon Age yet. If you go so far as to converse with each companion, the motivations and expressions for each bit of pleasure and pain are
fascinating.
I'd be amiss if I didn't mention Dorian Pavis, voiced by Ramon Takaram and written by David Gator. Dorian is a show of vulnerability and pride, fronted with wit and sarcasm that really cater to the high expectation for the son of a Tevinter Magister. Perfect body, perfect mind, the highest of magical talent, bred for the purity of the Pavis bloodline. But underneath, he's just a clever ass, who becomes defiantly reserved despite feigning self-reliance. The different inflections and expressions in Dorian's voice alone in the confrontation with his father is intense, striking with twinges of anger and pain.
For you, for your fucking legacy. Anything for that.
Confessing to the Inquisitor of his homosexuality and his father's use of blood magic to tamper that identity is more than just a scene in a video game. It's a reflection of what some people face today, and in its moment, that reflection of reality within Dorian's own situation is not just narratively compelling, but sincere. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, Sarah was shockingly a breath of fresh air. Why? Because I hated her. Disliked her ever so strongly. While I could respect Sarah's character as a whole, I find her so overwhelmingly loathsome that I'm appreciative of how she's written. She acts like a child, a carefree prankster, but willfully ignorant and insensitive. Her condensation for anything academic, or even beyond the boundaries of her own Andrastian beliefs, is so repugnant, so outrageously inflammatory, that I'm glad she's part of the Inquisition. And even more so, the ability to kick her out. But she stays true to her passions, and that I can respect as the character. Feeling like I had to lie to her face in order to get her to stay in the Inquisition, or to just shut her up, made me see how effective of a character she was. While at first I actually hated Sarah's lack of character progression from start to Inquisition, I realized that my reactions to her made me self-realize as both the Inquisitor and myself, in the way that I play and act diplomatic, sarcastic, aggressive, and in how I choose my decisions as a player. And she made me think so in a way more than most characters in the franchise have ever challenged my Warden or my Hawk, held me as a player to think. So bravo, Sarah, bravo. I love to hate you. As far as my favorite moments, the most personally hard-hitting arc, as I did not expect it from her character, is Morrigan and the old god baby, Kieran. Simply put, the way that she earnestly cares for her son, hell, even showing more of her humanity instead of the manipulative coldness and callousness she showed in Origins. Seeing Morrigan develop, challenge Flemeth, and be willing to give up her own freedom, one she fought for so long, for the sake of her son, was one of the most poignant scenes in Dragon Age yet. It was a relief and captivating to see the old god baby revealed in such a way, changing Morrigan for the better. And while I probably made a mistake giving Flemeth such power, at the same time, closing Morrigan's tale on a happy note, and with a happy family, made the decision satisfying, to say the least. Shifting back to our own happiness, the romances themselves do not overlap in any way. Some are lighthearted and others make you challenge what you believe. While optional, they are organic. Honest. Each takes care to not just interact with the Inquisitor, but to also meld with the experience. The laughter, the tears, the madness. The romance develops as you go on. You can forget your love as much as you forgive, or you can dive fully into the experience. It's not just sex for the sake of it. The romance becomes more than that. They become yours. These reflections of reality, our own reality, shine in the backgrounds of each individual character. Each has their own faults and failings, despite pledging themselves to the higher cause, the Inquisition. Cullen struggles with his lyrium addiction and the terrors of his torture at the Ferelden Circle, all the while managing the responsibility of the Inquisition's armies. Cassandra's leap of faith as she is claimed heretic for creating the Inquisition. Blackwall is the pretender, but finds his own path to correct his past. Even the most simple things. Varric's in love with a woman he can never have, but he risks assassins at his door to get help, to correct what him and Bartrand uncovered in that fateful expedition years ago. Forget the dragons, and the magic, the high fantasy. The ability to become a god may have drawn you in, but the connections and stories you experience with these characters reverberate. They're powerful, and they make you keep going, and make it all the more enriching. The real story is the Inquisition. The advisors, the companions. Forgetting Corypheus' role in almost ending the world reminds you what the Inquisition really is. A reshaping of Southern Thedas into what the player wants. The Inquisitor holds more power than the hero Ferelden and Hawke ever had. Well, quite literally. The Inquisitor chooses the fate of the Mages and Templars, the Seekers, the new Grey Warden conflict, the leader of Orlais, the revitalization of the Circle, and of course, the Divine. Enough hints during the Wicked Eyes and Wicked Hearts mission, as well as the War Table operations, point to a possible relationship with Khal and the Inquisition. Dwarves are even more curious on Orzammar's attempts at reconciling the two dwarven kingdoms. With the absence of a strong dwarven presence in Inquisition, and the exception of Varric's personal quest with the Carta and the possibility of a dwarven inquisitor, it seems all signs point to the dwarven kingdoms in the next installment, or more likely, DLC. But where does this leave the Inquisitor? In a number of positions, like the tempting ability to become a god. While the orb is destroyed, the Inquisitor still holds the anchor that allows passing physically into the Fade. They even banish Corypheus to it. While it is a small detail that Morrigan hints at, the Inquisitor does hold the power to become a god themselves. I'm not calling DLC, but I am glaring at the opportunity to not only have our Inquisitor succeed, but also ascend. A person in such a position of influence does not simply fade away, and where the Inquisitor leaves off at the end of Dragon Age leaves much difficulty in constructing a powerful, yet effective player character for Dragon Age 4. The Inquisitor holds so much influence. When we pass the DLC and find our ways up north, finally leaving Ferelden to its fate, and perhaps Orlais to its own trifles and stinky cheeses, I hope that the lessons learned from the first two games and the drastic improvements set forth in Inquisition pave the way to the ultimate exploration and narrative experiences for future Dragon Age games to come. Dragon Age Inquisition is a narratively and mechanically ambitious game that delivers tens of hundreds of hours for the player's enjoyment. Its careful reflection in the Inquisitor and the Inquisition itself outshines the conflict which drives the world into madness in the first place. While the game presents an enemy that only superficially delivers, its journey and true end share Bioware's pride and solace in exceeding its expectations as a Dragon Age game, shifting away from the small stage of its predecessors and unveiling the massive scale of what is truly Thedas. Dragon Age Inquisition is a journey worth taking, worth experiencing, and has definitely been worth the wait. My name is Ash. Thank you for watching. Take care. Fen Harel and Ansel.